Hello, fellow Glowforge fans. It's Jonathan Broadwell, and today I'm going to be showing you how to use Inkscape to create a simple enclosure. I needed an enclosure for a couple of joysticks for an electronics project I'm doing, and normally I would do something like this in SolidWorks. Take a look up above for a link to how to do SolidWorks to Glowforge, but today I did the whole thing in Inkscape. I'm a member of the Friendliest Glowforge group on Facebook, run by the fantastic Jonathan Gletch. Sorry if I said your name wrong. And there's been a bunch of questions on there lately about how do I use Inkscape? How do I use vectors? How do I get the cut order to change? How do I score before I cut? I put text in there, but the text doesn't engrave or the text doesn't score. How do I fix that? And so basically all of those problems were in this project I was doing. So I put this video together, hopefully to help some of you guys, some of you beginners that are new to Inkscape. We use a box generator for this and combine it with some of our own cuts and all of that kind of stuff. So, I use this for an electronics project, but you could easily make Christmas gift boxes, gift card boxes, things like that out of this, napkin holders, whatever. So anyway, let's get started. We're going to take a look at the joysticks and how we're going to integrate these into this laser cut enclosure. Okay, so a bit ago I got this awesome joystick, 3 degrees of freedom plus a button that I want to play with, but I need something to mount it in. Unfortunately, this joystick did not come with any dimensions or anything like that, so we're going to have to make a case for it. So right off the bat, it looks like we got 4 holes here. So we will make 4 holes like that. And since we don't have dimensions, we're going to look at it ourselves. And I will do that in millimeters. So it looks like it's 31 millimeters from hole to hole there. And the same thing in that direction. So and then we've got this rubber seal here that goes there, and that fits just inside of the back of this plastic thing. I think we're supposed to push this through and have this sit on top of the wood. And so we really don't need a very big hole for that joystick whatsoever. If I look on the inside here, there is another circle here that allows the joystick to move. We're going to want to go over a little farther than that. So it looks like the joystick, we'll look at that kind of third circle in and just approximate that. So it looks like I want a 27 millimeter diameter hole in the middle. Then the joystick is going to sit inside of there. And so how much height do we need? There's nothing on the bottom that looks interesting, so we can put it almost straight down to the bottom. And it looks like it's 30 millimeters high. And .40 millimeters square at the bottom. So I have 2 of these, so we'll want to make 2 sets of holes that are similar to that. Okay, here we are in Inkscape. I'm using version 1.01, which apparently is from 4 years ago. It's working good for me, so I've never upgraded it. Let's start out by doing a file, document properties, and we want to set up our document. Since we took our measurements in millimeters, we want our document to be in millimeters. We're going to set it up for landscape, and we're going to set it up to be 16 by 20 which is what I've heard you should set up a Glowforge thing for. That's the bed size. I don't know that it makes any difference, but I always do it and it works out good for me. So 20 inches times 25.4 millimeters per inch is 508 millimeters wide. And (16 times 25.4 is 406.4 millimeters. So that sets up our document. So custom size, scale, good. Okay. So now we've got a bigger square in which we're going to do this. So let's create a circle that will be our main center hole. I'm going to hold down the control button. That gives me a perfect circle, and it doesn't really matter how big it is. Now I'm going to go over here. I'm going to unselect it and reselect it. I found I've had better results there. I'm going to make sure that this lock is set because I want the lock to keep the length and width the same. And we said we want our interior hole to be 27 millimeters. So 27 millimeters across. And then we want 4 little holes. Again, holding down the control key. And we didn't say how far those were. I saw the screws that go through them. They're quite small. So let's set these for 2 millimeters each. And that's the laser's just going to hit that and make a small hole. And we want 2 of those. And I'm going to set dimensions. I'm going to set, I know I want them 31 millimeters apart. That's how big our holes were. So I'm going to set the X to 1 on this one. And I'm going to set the X on this one to 32. And actually, I'll do that with the Y's as well. Okay, so now I've got 2 circles that are 31 apart. I'm going to cut and paste those. I'm going to come up here and go to the alignment. And I'm going to hit Control G to group those 2. I'm going to group those 2. And now I'm going to say align them both left. And I set this group at height at Y of 1. I want them 31 millimeters apart. So I'm going to set this one at Y of 32. And that looks good. Now I'm going to take all 4 of those and group them. Now I want to put my circle in the center of those. So I'm going to say align center and center. And now I'm going to hit group on that. And there we go. That should be my that should be the circle that I want. So before we go any further, let's take this and cut it out on some cardboard and make sure that we like the way it looks. So I'm going to go to create a new design, upload a file. And I'll upload the beginning of my joystick box. And actually, let's go back and let's put a little box around this guy so that we get another cut. Because I don't want to have to deal with that whole thing when I'm just testing. So I'm going to create a box, and I'm going to create this box in a different color because that's not what I wanted. To get a different color thing, hold down Shift and then do it. So for right now, let's draw another box around this. I want no fill, and I want it to be blue, which it is. And we will make that guy 40 by 40. And again, this is grouped already, so we'll take and we'll center it on that. And I made this blue and the others red. I wanted to cut the red ones first, then the blue. You want to work from inside to outside. So now, let's go into the Inkscape software. And forget that. Let's upload my file. And that's good. And you can see now I'm using an unknown material. I'm going to set it to medium draft board. That's what I use for this heavy duty craft board that I'm using. And you can see it separated it into two separate cuts. One is the outside cut that was in blue. The other is the inside cut that was in red. These are in the wrong order for me. So I'm going to drag this one up above that one. Now it will cut the inside part first and then the outside part. It runs the steps from top to bottom. So let's, we're looking at the Glowforge. Let's put some paper in it and let's cut it. Okay, I loaded my paper. Let's drag this up to the corner so we use as little of our materials as possible. And we'll hit print. And this will be a fast one. Okay, easy peasy. And I'm using an inline fan here, 6-inch. I'll put a video up about that guy later. I love that thing. Give it just a second to suck all the air out. And then we'll open it. All right, and let's check out the fit here. That's interesting. This doesn't go through there. That's not something I anticipated. So now we're going to bust out the calipers again and figure out what size hole do we need to be able to pass the joystick through there. And it looks like 36 millimeters should get the job done. And that's still a little smaller. Actually, not a coincidence. This inner ring in here, it looks to be the same size as the joystick. So let's take this guy, let's make that hole bigger up to 36 millimeters and cut it again. Okay, going back to Inkscape, we're going to take this guy, we're going to click on it once, that gets the group. I'm going to click on it again. And if I keep clicking, eventually I get that inside circle. And so we said we need the diameter on that one to be 36. And that screws up the whole, I'm sorry, that was not right. That was the Y. We want the width to be 36. And it measures it from the edge, so that screwed up this whole group. So we're going to ungroup this. We're going to get rid of this guy for a minute. The 4 circles are still grouped. So I'm going to hit Control U to ungroup. And I lost my grouping on those circles. So now I'm going to hit Control G to regroup those. Hit this guy and do the alignment on the centers. And so now I'm going to regroup these and I will align it again within the center of that box. And say save. Go back into Inkscape, or go back into Glowforge, delete this guy, upload the file again. And let's adjust the paper. And let's cut it. Okay, and I made a mistake there. Could you see it? We cut the outside first, then the inside. After we did that, the cardboard fell down. That'll affect alignment and autofocus. So that's why I try to do these things in that order. Now, what could we do about that? It appears that the Glowforge prioritized the blue over the red. So I wonder if we go in here, and if we make this blue, and if we make this red, I'm holding down the Shift key and say File, Save. This time you can see it made the inside show up first and the outside show up second. So that's a worthwhile thing for me to do in my file. That way I don't have to go back and remember to change them. I don't know exactly what the file, I don't know exactly what the priority for the different colors is inside of Glowforge's software, but clearly there is one because it put the others on top. So let's go and cut that thing again. Okay, that went through okay. And now let's make sure that we can bend up that rubber to get it up on top of that, or are we supposed to push that through? Yeah, it appears to me that there's actually a little bit of a flange here. And so I think that rubber is supposed to be inside, and I think we're supposed to put the screws through there. So let's make this yet even a little bigger. I'm going to measure the diameter of that rubber seal. And it's hard because when I squeeze on it, it gets smaller. That looks like about 39.3 millimeters. So we'll make it, we know we're going to have a little bit of kerf. If you don't know what kerf is, look that up. We'll call it 39.1. And I spoke wrong. To ungroup is Control-Shift-G. That's why I was having problems before. All right, let's try that one. Goes over the joystick, fits nicely over that rubber flange, and if I adjust this so that my holes line up, looking from the bottom, that looks about right. So I'm going to get the screws real quick and put them through the holes and just verify that that's right. Okay, and that is definitely off. These are definitely not big enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it concentric with the other one. And then I'm going to use a pencil to put a dot down in the middle of that. And that'll show us how far we're off. So again, I'll use the micrometer here. You can see my little dot. We can see the it looks like we need about 2¼ millimeters added to that. Okay, so and now we're going to make the box that we're going to put the thing in. And there's no reason for us to reinvent the wheel here. We want just a standard tabbed box. And there's lots of generators out there. The one I use most of the time is en.makercase.com. So I'm going to go there. Going to change this guy into millimeters. How big do I want the box? Just looking at my ruler here, I'd say 25 millimeters wide by 15 millimeters deep. And we said before that we need at least 31 millimeters deep, and actually 30 millimeters. And so we'll give that just a little bit extra. We'll go to 40. So 250, 150, and depth is 40. So that's what our box is going to look like. We're going to be using 1/8 Baltic birch plywood, which is approximately 3 millimeters. That's good enough. We can adjust for kerf and things like that if we want to, but I'm not going to. We want this to be a closed box because we want a top and the bottom. And so that looks like a good box. And we'll import this into Inkscape and then add our holes to it. I don't like the panel labels. That's just something that I delete off. And so I'm going to do that, and I'm going to say, oh, we don't have the finger joints. Edge joints, finger. Okay, that's what we want, because I want to be able to put it together that way. Download box plans. Disabled. Download a single file SVG. And there it is. Now let's drag that file that we downloaded into Inkscape. We're just going to drop it on top of the file we've already got open. We're going to say include SVG image as editable objects in the current file. And zoom out, and we can see we've got those here. And I'm going to take those and make the lines a little thicker so I can see them better. Doesn't really make any difference. That's better. And these are grouped. So I want to be able to move them around on my print bed. So I'm going to go to Object, Ungroup. Now I've got individual items, which is good. So on one of these is going to be my top, one of these is going to be my bottom. So let's take, and I want two of my holes, and let's align both of those center from a horizontal, and then let's use the distribute. Yep, can't do that. How far apart do we want these? We know that this thing is 25 wide, so maybe we'll make it 18 separate. So again, we'll use the trick of declaring this at number 1, which would make this one 181. And do I like that? No, I think I want them about, I'm just going to eyeball it. I think I want them about that far apart. So again, I'll do that. And now I'm going to group them. And I will align the group now centered with that. So now I've got two sets of holes. If we get in close, we can see we still got the little holes. And those should cut that way. Next, I know that I have these long pieces right here, and I know that I'm going to want a place for wires to come out of this thing. So I'm going to create another box, and we want it to be an inside cut. So again, I'm going to do it in blue. That's not what I wanted. We'll do that. No fill. I'm going to hold down the Shift key and click blue. And so we've got that. And so now how big do I want it within here? Probably smaller than that. That width looks about right. So I'm going to select both of these again, and I'm going to align it relative to the centers. And I want these things to always move together, so I'm going to group those two. I want these things to move together, so I'm going to group those. Now, maybe we should add some text. So I'm going to come in here, and for this is for a robot controller. And I'm going to take that text and make that Arial. Actually, Arial Black is what I like. Is Arial Black available? No, I guess it's not. Okay. And we'll make that 18. And I want to score these, and so I'm going to mark them no fill, and I will make my score lines green. And so then I'm going to duplicate this guy, And if you see that I've got these arrows, this lets me make things bigger and smaller. If I click on this again, you'll notice the arrows change to these angular arrows, which let me do this instead. And I'm going to hold down the control key, and that'll make it move at, I don't know, 30-degree angles, 15-degree angles. I don't know what it was doing there, but it's definitely constrained. So I'm going to take this, and I'm going to take I'm going to make it relative to that here. And it's important when we do alignment for some things. Note that this is relative to first selected. So I'm going to select this box first, select shoulder, and do that. Now this one's a little trickier because I want it centered relative to this thing right here. So I keep double clicking in here till I get the part that I want. So that's my first selected. I'm going to select this, and I'm going to center it this way. Now, with this, I'm going to move him, and I'm going to hold down my control key so that he moves down like that. And these particular joysticks also twist. But I don't think I'm going to use the twist function there. Okay, so let's take this guy, and if I hit Control C and Control V, I can make another one of him, put him over here. I'm going to align him with this one so that they're at the same height. And then this one will be wrist. And again, I want to take that guy. I'm going to keep clicking in here till I get just that part. Then I'm going to select this and center that relative to that. Bring this guy over here. Elbow. And again, actually, I know with that one, I can just center it relative to the whole thing because that's centered vertically. So got elbow, and then got one more I want to do. I want to notify the user that they can twist that. And I've got two lines here. And so I think in this text, I want to center those relative to each other. And again, I'm going to take first selected, second selected, and do that vertically. Okay, so that's good. And I want one more notification up here. Button. We'll store a position in the future action of this thing. So again, I'm going to go through here, click this until I get to, had it, the object I want. Make sure that that's centered. And then for the other one, we have a gripper on that robot. And I think I want these two, make sure they're aligned with each other, and then I want them down a little lower. Okay, so these will be my in my scoring, and let's go through and mark all these and group them, and then let's add them to a group with the main thing. So now all these, since I put them all in a group, that whole thing moves around, and I can position it on the table that way. Now, finally, we may want to engrave something. There's two ways that we could go about that. We could put it in the image separately into the Glowforge software, or we can drop it in this SVG. So let's do that so that we have all of our files together. So we'll drop this guy in here. Import, we'll go ahead and embed him. DPI from file, that's fine. And where did he go? It's working on it. It's a big file. And wow, that's really big. Okay, so we're going to zoom out a little bit. And we'll take him, make him smaller, zoom in, make him smaller again. And drop him right here. And I will center him relative to the bottom. Okay, so again, I'm going to go back and regroup this whole thing. Then I'm going to file save this, and let's import it again to the Glowforge. The text has been removed. To print text, you can use design software to expand the text to outlines before saving. All right, so let's go back and do that. That's an important skill, and it's one I forgot. So we're going to go into InkScape. And again, we'll ungroup this thing. We're always grouping and ungrouping, aren't we? Okay, so we're going to select each of these guys. And once we do this, this is a one-way trip. We can't edit the text after we do this. We go to text and actually path, object path. Now at this point, these become not text anymore, but they become something that the Glowforge software just sees as lines. All right, that looks good. Let's fire up the forge and put a big piece of cardboard in there and see if we can make one of these. All right, clearly I'm not going to be able to get all these on one page. So let's start by taking these off. I'll take this one, rotate it. Can I get that on a page? And of course, this uses shift instead of control. That looks good. Let's put this guy over here. And I can at least get one of these guys. We'll put the most complicated one. Okay, so same thing over here. We see this. What do we got here? It doesn't know it because it's not proof grade. So I'm going to tell it that it is medium draft board. The engrave here, I'm going to tell it to treat that like a draft graphic. I don't want to spend a bunch of time, so I'm going to let it just do it quick and dirty. And I'm going to tell it to vary power. And we'll just see how that turns out. It may be crappy. Then next up, these things are marked as cut. We don't want that. We want those to happen next. And we're going to tell it to score those. And there's not too much of it. It won't take long. So let's tell it to do that at high quality. And then these are our inners. That looks good. These are our outers. That looks good. And so it looks like we're ready to go. So let's say print. All right, 12 minutes. It's going to take a little while because of that engrave. That's where most of our time is going to go. So let's do it. Okay, now let's do the rest of the pieces we didn't get before. We'll see if we can fit them all on that scrap piece that I used previously. All right. I love it when a plan comes together. And those are just going to all fall into the same cut range. So let's print that boy. Okay, here we have the finished article. Pretty pleased with the way that turned out. This was just a prototype. I'll build the final thing out of Baltic birch 1/8 inch wood. But pretty pleased in how that turned out. I hope you learned something interesting about Inkscape and how to interface it to the Glowforge interface.